So, a lot of US accounting firms are hitting a wall. You know the feeling, the traditional in-house model, it feels safe, it feels like you're in control, but it often creates these hidden bottlenecks that just completely stifle your growth. In this explainer, we're going to dive into a smarter, much more scalable way to grow your firm.
All right, so here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll really define that in-house bottleneck. Then, we'll explore a solution that can actually scale with you, and, most importantly, how you stay in the driver's seat. After that, we'll look at finding the right model for you, bust a few common myths, and then wrap up with how to actually move forward.
Okay, let me ask you something right off the bat. Does this feel familiar? Your firm's doing great, clients are happy, but behind the scenes, your team is just stretched to the absolute limit. It feels like no matter how hard everyone paddles, you just can't get ahead of the current. Well, that feeling? That's what we call the capacity ceiling.
And that leads us right into our first big topic, the in-house bottleneck. It's what happens when the sheer volume and complexity of the work just outpaces your team's ability to keep up, and it comes with some very real but often hidden costs. You know, the signs of this strain, they're probably all too familiar. Late nights start to feel normal, your best people, your senior staff, they get completely bogged down in routine work instead of focusing on high-value strategy. And because no one has a spare second to think about improving processes, burnout and turnover start to creep up. Sound familiar? And this is absolutely crucial to understand. This isn't about your team's talent. Your people are probably fantastic. The problem isn't the people, it's the structure. You've simply hit the natural limits of a purely in-house model.
So if the problem is a lack of capacity, what's the fix? Well, it's not about replacing your amazing team. It's about extending it. The idea is to strategically add reliable, scalable capacity that's built on a foundation of really strong process discipline.
So what kind of work are we talking about here? Well, it's typically the high-volume, super detail-oriented stuff that demands consistency. Things like fund accounting, endless reconciliations, and prepping all that documentation for audits. Because these tasks are so standardized and repeatable, they're perfect for an offshore delivery model. It just frees up your local team to breathe and focus on what matters most.
Now, let's tackle the big one. The question that stops so many firms in their tracks. The fear of losing control. But what if I told you that a well-structured process could actually give you more control and more visibility, not less? Let's take a look. And this breakdown shows you exactly how it works. It's a layered system. First, your offshore team does the prep work. They process all that high-volume stuff. Then, step 2, your onshore team, your experts, they do the high-level review and approval. Third, solid documentation connects every single step, so nothing gets lost. And the most important part, number 4, accountability always stays with your firm. You're always in control.
So the big idea here, the real game changer, is that this model neatly separates the execution from the oversight. And that doesn't just improve accuracy, it prevents all those last-minute fire drills. A good system forces clear workflows, and that means you get more visibility into the process, not less.
But look, this isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. Of course not. Different types of work have different needs, which is why it's so important to understand the different models out there.
This lays it out really clearly. An offshore model, say in India, is perfect for that standardized, high-volume work we were talking about. You can literally leverage the time zone difference so work gets done while you're sleeping. On the other hand, a nearshore model is way better for work that needs a lot of back and forth, real-time discussion because the time zones are aligned. Honestly, most firms end up using a blend of both to get the best of both worlds.
Okay, let's address the elephant in the room. There are a ton of misconceptions floating around about outsourcing, so let's take a minute and separate the fact from the fiction.
All right, first up, the idea that this is just a cost-cutting exercise, that it's only about the bottom line. And look, yeah, there are cost savings, for sure. But the real win here, the strategic reason to do this, is all about gaining scalable capacity. It's about building consistent workflows that let your firm grow without completely burning out your best people.
Next up is the big one, a really powerful fear, the idea that you'll somehow lose control over the quality of the final work.
But like we just talked about, the reality is it's the exact opposite. That layered review process, that intense focus on clear documentation, it actually tightens up accountability and gives you more visibility, not less.
And the last myth we'll tackle today is this idea that, this is a game only the giant multinational firms can play. The truth is, mid-sized firms are often in the sweet spot to get the most out of this. Why? Well, because they're agile enough to actually implement new processes quickly. And they get this huge amount of leverage from the flexibility and scale that an extended team brings.
So, with those myths busted, let's talk about the smarter way to move forward. If you're thinking this might be for you, how do you actually get started? Well, the key is to start small, with manageable pieces, and just build momentum from there.
So where do you begin? Well, these are some perfect places to start. We're talking about functions that are easy to document, easy to review, and easy to scale. Think bookkeeping, month-end close support, maybe some trial balance prep. When you start here, you build confidence in the process, you see results fast, and that creates a solid foundation to build on.
And that really brings us to the most important point of all. The goal here isn't to just make your talented team work harder and pull more all-nighters. The goal is to work smarter by designing a more resilient, more flexible way of getting the work done.
So I'll leave you with this question. Just imagine for a second. What could your senior staff achieve if they were freed from all those routine tasks? What could they do with that time back? More high-level client strategy? Deeper innovation? Finding new ways to grow the firm? Because at the end of the day, removing the bottleneck doesn't just solve a problem. It unlocks your firm's true potential.